I wanted to get to kind of the circumstances today. The restaurants that were not on the platforms were not on the platforms because they found a way or they found a recipe to kind of survive without it. And those that are like flocking to the platforms now are doing it for survival. And a lot of these platforms today, and I think a bunch of conversations, actually the reason we tied up because of this podcast was because me and you shared opinions. You know, you started to share your opinion kind of vocally, and so did I. And I was really kind of struck by this new world where these aggregators, who by the way are not as healthy as they used to be. People have this misconception that during COVID, you know, these guys are growing exponentially and they've never made more money, which is not at all true. It's actually the opposite. And however, the restaurants that have been able to hold their ground for so long are now flocking to them just for a means to keep revenue coming in, so that they don't literally have to, you know, go bankrupt or fire everybody. So there's now kind of an abuse happening, right? So these aggregators are in a unique position, and they're looking at it as an opportunity to kind of scale this endless world of scale.
Well, it's a data grab, right? It's a market share grab. Right?
Absolutely. Maybe not a scale in revenue, but a scale in market size. So we're starting to see that a lot, and we're starting to see the true nature, the true colors of these brands, where okay, they know they have the upper hand, they know they can, you know, land grab and get everybody on board, and now they're going to start to kind of twist on the economies, right? On the pricing, on the commissions, et cetera. And that's where we tied up on LinkedIn and where you made a post. And I think, you know, coming out of COVID, you know, on the brand narrative, I really hope, and this is where I'd love to get your personal opinion. I really hope that people start to make conscious decisions and take notes and run tabs on how these brands are acting, because the future of the world post-COVID is going to be a world where consumers are going to have to decide whether or not they will accept these business models or whether they're going to be able to, I don't want to say boycott, but at least boycott their way towards a more sustainable future, right? So pick brands and buy products and services from brands that see the world a little bit more differently. Do you think, you know, we're talking about, you know, VCs kind of running low, scalability and sustainability being a challenge. Now that their true nature is coming out, do you actually think that that industry is at risk? And do you think that you're going to see all kinds of, I guess, consolidation to an extent, and maybe even a complete shift in consumer behavior? Do you think that's where we're going? It might take 5 to 10 years, but do you think that's what's happening?
I think we were there anyway. Like, I don't think COVID. So, and you know, my comments about COVID is that they should be. What I find discouraging is, you know, during COVID, I mean, everybody's suffering, right? But they not only are they not helping the restaurants, you know, who, you know, they're charging 35% to, you know, but they're being very disingenuous in their communication, and they're suggesting to customers that they're helping restaurants, and they're not. You know, they're doing anything but helping restaurants. And their greatest fear is that customers know, because, you know, they're very clever. If you actually look at the way they set things up, they're like, they charge us 35%, right? But then they charge you, you know, between 7 and 11 dirhams, which, by the way, I still predict will be 20 dirhams before long. But the customer thinks that they're picking up the tab. They're not. So what they don't like is people actually understanding, the customer actually understanding the business model, right? And because of that, I think, so this is sort of one positive thing. There's a couple of positive things coming out of COVID. One is that people are becoming more aware of what's happening and what they're charging, right? Customers, I mean. Number two, I think a lot of the restaurants have woken up and are, you know, and yes, they can go on now. I don't think it's going to make much difference. If you haven't been on, I mean, you're a little bit late to the party, but it's going to make you aware of what's out there and what's happening and how this whole system works. And it might start you thinking. But I think that this was happening. So this is, you know, my complaint is about their behavior during this pandemic, particularly, you know, suggesting that they're saviors for this industry, and they're nothing but bad for our industry, and they've done nothing to help any restaurants other than to help themselves. So, you know, and what people need to understand is they want customers. You know, they don't care about the restaurants. They want your customers, and, you know, and that's what they're after. And that's what I find interesting. Our industry doesn't even realize that they don't even know the rules of the game. The rules of the game are you need to actually have a relationship with your customer, right? So what everybody's, you know, so I think they should be dropping their fees during the pandemic just to, I mean, take some of the pain for everybody else as well, you know. But they were in trouble before. I mean, let's not be, you know, the funding has dried up, you know, after the WeWork debacle, after the, you know, I mean,
Yeah, the house of cards. The house of cards fell.
Yeah, I mean, SoftBank's in a world of pain, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you know, Uber is, you know, probably the lucky ones, you know, that got out at all, right? You know, and the rest it's failure to launch, right? And so when you look at the industry, you look at governments starting, you know, like think about the UK, which is a really interesting place, right? So you've got these big players, you know, vying for the UK, which is a huge market, right? So, you know, takeaway out of Amsterdam, you know, just made a move and they acquired Just Eat from the UK, but that's under investigation.
Yeah.
Deliveroo's deal with Amazon was blocked for antitrust, and you know, it's under investigation. But what's interesting is if you can't take market control, what value do you have when you're losing money already? So, you know, there's a weird, it's a three-legged stool, right? Or four-legged, like how do you, or two-legged stool, how, you know, if you don't make money today and you're telling investors, I need scale to make money, right? To exercise price control, and governments won't let you do it, right? You know, for antitrust, it creates a very strange dynamic. And that's what's going on now in the UK. Who's going to invest in Deliveroo today? You know, given that they've been blocked, so they can't consolidate, right? So it's a very weird, it's a very strange time in our existence. So the simple answer is there is consolidation. It's been happening for the last 18 months and accelerating. I mean, Uber Eats sold out to, you know, Swiggy in India, which is an insane deal, to be honest. Like bad deal for, you know, for Swiggy, I would argue. You know, but there's this mass consolidation. They're pulling out. You know, they're retrenching. But to me, they're all on fumes. I mean, Deliveroo are arguably, you know, operating on cash fumes right now because they didn't get their deal through. Now, you know, there's a plus and a minus to that. I don't want to see businesses go under, you know, but at the same time, you know, the antitrust is setting in. But I mean, they probably have very little access to cash, right? Uber Eats, you know, when they did their IPO, they claimed how fast Uber Eats was growing, but what they didn't, you know, what was in the fine print is as the bigger it grows, the more money they lose. You know, so you know, they're running out of places to go, and they're running out of money. So you consolidate, right? Go out of business, right? Or raise more money. And you know, the last one, which was the one they've been using to date, is really not very available.
Yeah, I mean, Steve and I, you know, we've been in the ride-hailing business for quite some time. Before Kareem, also I was at Rocket Internet with the taxi. So I've been in the ride-hailing business, which has a lot of similarities in terms of the business models. You know, looking back and reflecting now, hindsight is always 20/20, definitely. But looking at the kind of fragility of it all is increasingly obvious, especially now that the money markets and capital access has kind of disappeared. I think.
I'll tell you just an anecdote. So I was speaking at the Restaurant Investment Forum in Amsterdam, and I was on a panel of like tech, but weirdly I was the only, and these are with big companies and stuff, but I was the only person that actually had our own tech platform. So everybody was talking about tech, right? You know, but what was interesting is this is the first time I've been at one of these events, and all the big players, you know, usually they're whining and moaning about the big, you know, the fees that are being charged and you know, all that kind of stuff. This time they were all worried about. They're like, well, if they're out of business, who's gonna be delivering our food? You know, which is fascinating. It's a bizarre switch. But the tone was they were worried that somebody wouldn't be there to, you know, to deliver the food, but they didn't like the way it was being done. It reminds me of that. I don't know if you've ever seen A Few Good Men.
Yeah.
That speech from Jack Nicholson. He says, you know, you need me on that wall because, but then don't question the way I do it. You know, don't, you know, like it's all that kind of stuff. You know, I mean, if you're not going to do it for yourself, then you have to accept the way it's given to you, right? Or if you're not going to find an alternative.
Absolutely. So in your opinion, then, if that trajectory continues, then we're going to see a huge shift eventually. And is that shift a shift where the operators or the restaurateurs themselves start to do more of what you're doing? Is that what you kind of expect, or do you expect the markets to come together?
Their business model, this model does not work. Right, the model that they're presenting to the market does not work. Right, it's a mathematical business fact. It does not work. Right.
Yeah.
So the question is, now, why are they doing it? Right, because the answer is they're evolving. Right, because you know the idea is if I have the data, then I'm worth something. Right, but they're evolving. They're just being forced to evolve very quickly now. I have no doubt in my mind. I mean, if I was Deliveroo, and I'm sure this is what's on their idea, is I'd become the biggest restaurant operator in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, but do it quickly, because you can't have to do it because you're going to piss everybody off. But you know, like you either you have to keep. I mean, if you think about it, they're into dark kitchens now. They're now running, you know, like Sweetheart Kitchen is a. So they're moving through the value chain. But this is a company that claims that they're a tech company, right? So why are you opening? You're in real estate now, right? Now you're in operations, you know, now you're supplying packaging, you know, like what are you, you know, you're a shapeshifter. So this is why I think they're dangerous, you know, to our industry. And our industry is I think, largely misinformed or unaware of actually the game. The game is much bigger than them. You know, they see it as a relationship between the restaurant industry and them, and they're not even players in the game, right? You know, like this is what I find interesting. And yeah, so you know, or they're going to go out of business, right? You know, but they're going to have to change their business model, and it's not necessarily going to be in the restaurant industry's favor. You know, like what better game? I mean, look at Amazon. Amazon bankrupted all the malls, and then they bought the malls, right? And now they're using them as distribution hubs, right? So there's this game is going on that's much bigger than, you know, I have a restaurant, right? You know, and I don't like paying lots of fees. You know, this is a much bigger game, and it's, I think, only the people that really understand it are going to survive, you know, and you know, or you're going to create other business models are going to be created, you know, from the smaller player, which is probably already happening.
And is there a world where the restaurants come together themselves and they don't unionize, but they kind of build some sort of collaborative platform? You don't think that's ever going to happen?
I don't think we're smart enough. And I say that
respectfully. You say respectfully.
We're too diverse an industry.
No, right? I understand. Yeah,
the
absolutely.
knowledge base is so varied, and I don't 100%. Even think the most senior people really have a full grasp of it, because they would have done things differently already.
Yeah.
So I just think we're so scattered. There's no way the industry could agree on anything. And it's happening here. They're trying to do things. But it's you know, people have asked me, they said, why don't you white label what you've done and, you know, do it for the industry? And I said, because the industry won't help itself. You know, I would actually do it if I believed that the industry would, but the industry won't help itself. I mean, you know, and you know, so why should I be the one trying to help people that, you know, that don't want to be helped or don't know how to be helped?
I completely understand. When it comes to kind of how you guys are dealing with COVID, just to get to kind of understanding the future of KRUSH Brands, you know, I'm a big kind of supporter of I think your three keywords are health, sustainability, and local. That's kind of like how you anchor your positioning as a group. How do you guys do delivery different from a logistics perspective when we compare to these big aggregators? How do you guys make it more sustainable? How do you guys keep it more local? And how do you take the, you know, health of your teams kind of at the forefront of how you operate? I mean, arguably these are really difficult and challenging times, exposing, you know, your front end kind of warriors to the risks that we live in today. How are you doing that differently in terms of, you know, especially the drivers, I guess?
I mean, the first thing is we give them all the protective equipment. The second thing is we make sure that they're all, like, our stores look like, you know, like surgeries right now. I mean, like, if we were always, you know, we didn't have to be here HACCP certified, but we're fully HACCP certified. Our drivers are HACCP trained. You know, so we've always been, you know, very vigilant. But I mean, we're really, really vigilant now. I mean, if you go into our stores, it literally, I mean, we're going to be doing, but it's our stores look like surgeries. I mean, they're spotless. I mean, they were always clean, but it's, you know, the guys are wearing gaiters. You know, everything is, you know. So we're doing our best to take care of that. Yeah. The drivers are, you know, obviously we're very concerned. If anyone has any signs, you know, we quarantine them immediately, right? We now have greater access to testing, which is important. We're trying to get all of our staff tested, actually, but we're just, you know, we're trying to figure that out. It's becoming more and more available, but it's still obviously being prioritized for higher risk areas. But yeah, we're basically keeping them really safe. You know, there's contactless delivery. You know, the other thing is it's different, but our drivers and other people's drivers, our drivers are allowed into our stores, right? So our drivers, you know, sanitize between every delivery. You know, when I see those guys sitting around on the streets, I'm actually just wondering, what are they doing to sanitize? You know, like, and where are they doing it, right? You know, and, you know, so our drivers are fully trained. They work for us, right? We have the ability to fully train them on all the, you know, the right things and enforce it, and, you know, and also give them the tools they need to be as safe as possible. But beyond, I mean, but other, you know, third-party delivery, they don't have the benefit of that. They got nowhere to go. They got nowhere to wash their hands. They've got, you know, they don't have, you know, their training. I mean, I don't know how much training they receive, to be honest.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think that's what's different about our guys, but it's a big concern. I mean, there's no question it's a big concern for us.